Hello and welcome to my first long live stream in a long time. It has been a while and I'm really excited to be back, and I'm hoping that we can do this a little bit more often, but thank you so much for joining me. And today I actually have a lot planned. We've had a lot of stuff that's just kind of shown up at the last minute that I'm very excited to share with you. So today, Kristen and Natalie are also going to be helping us out in the chat. So make sure you say hi to them, and they're going to be helping to answer your questions and passing feedback through to Shane, who's going to also be picking some questions that you ask in the comments that I can answer as we go. So please ask all your questions, give me some feedback, so that we can have a two-way conversation, and we're just gonna have fun today. So the goal today is that I'm gonna go through what I think are some essential coloring skills that every beginner needs to know, but I also think sometimes that even if you've been coloring for a while, it's really handy just to get a refresher on the basics. And I don't know, let me know in the comments if you're someone who maybe has been watching my channel for a while but has never actually dabbled in coloring, or if you're someone who's been curious, or if you're someone who actually just loves coloring for yourself. I would love to know where you fit on that sort of spectrum of expertise when it comes to adult coloring, because I'm sure that we have a really big mix of people here, and we will kind of juggle this and adjust as we go according to what you guys need. So ask the questions and I will do my best to answer and follow along, and we will try to make this the most useful but also fun live stream that we can. So Shane, say hello. He's here as well.
Hi everyone.
So you'll hear Shane from behind the camera as well. And today we're not only going to do a bit of a coloring 101, but I also wanted to show you some of the new products that I've got, which you've probably seen in some past videos. We're not going to spend too much time on them, but because we have been working on them here, I do have a little bit more of a closer look at some of the new sticker books, at some of the journals, at the coloring planner. So if you do have any questions, this is like the perfect chance. And I also got a big surprise from Jazza in the mail yesterday. So we are going to be having our own little private unboxing. And from what I understand, Jazza hasn't even officially launched this on his channel yet. So by watching this stream, especially if you're here live and not on a replay, you actually get a look at Jazza's new art bag before Jazza's own audience. So that's pretty cool. He's launching a Kickstarter that is gonna be live, I think this time tomorrow. So by having a look here, we're gonna have a little bit of a sneak peek at the bag because it looks amazing. And I thought that we could have an early look so that you guys can kind of get like first access, because from what I have heard, he's expecting to sell out on the early bird really quickly. So I wanna make sure that you get like first dibs. But I think we should start, and I want to show you, I guess, how I approach a coloring page and my first basic tips of just where do we start. So I decided today, I know a lot of the time I use Prismacolors, and a lot of the comments that I get is, well, of course it's easy. You're using like really good, easy to blend pencils. So today I decided we're going to mix things up, and I am going to be using the Starjoy Gold Edition pencils, because when I did my big pencil comparison, which Kristen will put a link in the comments for you, of when I went and compared 90 different brands, this was a brand that actually ranked in a really affordable range. But compared to all the other budget pencils that I tested, these were the ones that impressed me the most for that lower budget category. So I am really curious to see how these go today. Well, not so much curious because I know, but we're going to use these today to do all of the blending and to teach you everything. And it's actually the first time I've used them in 6 months, I'll be honest, because I do love my Prismacolor and my luminance, and that's okay. But I know not everyone can afford those higher end pencils, and we do want to make this more beginner friendly today. So we're using some more beginner friendly pencils. Now my tray actually is missing a whole tray right now because we have another project in the works, but there's still plenty here to choose from. So the first thing when we are using our pencils is we want to make sure that we have a sharp point. Now these are actually pretty good as is. but just so that I can show you what my favorite sharpeners are. And again, I have a whole video because I love testing things to an obsessive level. So I have a whole video where I have tested just every sharpener I could find, which actually was only about 20. So I know that there are a lot more than that. But these are two that I end up coming back to time and time again. The Tea-Girl is one that I really like because you have adjustable sizes. And for something like the Prismacolor pencils, you don't actually want a really sharp point. So a point like this that's really sharp on a Prismacolor is more likely to break a Prismacolor because they are a much softer core pencil. And so on the Tea-Girl, we can actually adjust to a smaller number, which will actually make the point. Actually, let me get you an example of difference. Thought I'd grab an example and I didn't even get one that was different. Here we go. Okay, so here's an example of a different end point. So this is a Polychromos pencil and here's the Prismacolor. And you can just see the totally different shape on the end of that point. That's not about the pencil, that's about the sharpener. So different sharpeners will give you different shapes. And the Tea-Girl sharpener will allow you to do a variety of shapes depending on the number that you pick. So a number 1 is gonna do more like this shape, whereas a number 5 is gonna do more like this shape. And this shape is great for really firm pencils that can handle it, but for really soft pencils, this kind of point is gonna break really quickly. It's great for details, but soft pencils in general are not gonna handle all that lead being exposed. So the Tea-Girl is really good for that. The downside that I have discovered with the Tea-Girl is that it doesn't last as long as my other sharpeners. So the sharpener video that I did, Shane, do you know how long ago that was now? It was probably almost 2 years ago now that I did that video.
Very, very, very long time ago.
In our YouTube world, it wasn't that long ago. It was probably coming up 2 years ago. The M&R sharpener I have here, which is the same as a Dahl 133 sharpener, which I tested in that video. This sharpener is the exact same sharpener that I used in that video, and it has not changed in its ability to sharpen. The Tea-Girl, as you can see, is black, and the one I did in the video was blue. I went to grab it in my drawer, but it's not there. And this is my third Tea-Girl sharpener in the same amount of time. So while it's cheaper and while it's a little bit more versatile in this, it hasn't lasted the test of time. So that's the one downside with this. So as much as it's one that I come back to, there are some advantages to grabbing a desktop sharpener like this, and this has actually become the sharpener that I use more over time. So these sharpeners, I know when I first used one, it was like, what do I even do with this? You basically pull this out, you put your pencil in. This pencil's already pretty sharp, but just to show you, you push this in, put it in, turn the handle. This might feel obvious if you're someone who knows what this is, but I swear when I first got one of these, I had no clue. Push it back in, pull it out, and you've got yourself a nice point.
So Kristen has helped us out and said that that sharpener video was a year ago.
There we go, a year ago. So this sharpener has already lasted at least a year. And if you watch my channel, you know that's a lot of pencils. That is not like everyday home use. That is like industrial use with the amount of pencils that I test in my videos. So this sharpener has been through its own pencil war and is still going. So highly recommend the M&R. Yeah, and this actually creates like a really fine sort of sawdust thing. I've heard people that like put it on their garden and stuff. I can't sort of vouch for that. I'll need to chat to my friend Kevin, who has a gardening YouTube channel, and see what he recommends. I don't know if the pigment that gets caught in that is good or bad for your garden. I'll follow up on that.
Hey Sarah, is
Yes.
it better to buy a larger set of cheap pencils like the Starjoy or a smaller set of quality pencils?
This all comes down to opinion and preferences. My personal opinion would be to get a smaller set of quality pencils because, and again, this depends on your own skill set as well. I think that learning to use less colors is actually an important part of learning to draw. I think sometimes a bigger set of colors is really tempting, especially when you see brands that sell like 500 colors. But in my experience, if you have 500 colors, you end up going back to the same 50 over and over, because a lot of the other colors become filler colors, or they're slight variations of the same color. And so you'll always end up with the one or two that you love that end up really short, and then you have 400 other pencils that you never use. Whereas if you have a smaller set, you start to experiment more and you build your skills in actually mixing colors together and layering colors to make new colors. And the quality pencils can do that, whereas the cheaper pencils can't. And in my experience too, when you use cheaper pencils, you have to work a lot harder to get the same results. Whereas when you use quality pencils, like, quality supplies don't make the artist, but they definitely make it easier for you to do the work. And I know when I first picked up my first set of luminance pencils, which are like really top end and they're quite expensive, when I started drawing, the experience of drawing for me was so much more enjoyable that I wanted to draw more, and I didn't get the hand cramps that I got from using cheaper pencils. And so as a result, I ended up building my skills more. So there are definitely benefits to spending the money on quality. And as much as, yes, a lot of people can't afford quality, and that's completely fine. If you have the choice of those two things, like you've said, of giving up quality for quantity, then I would always choose quality in that instance. So I hope that helps. Let's jump in and show you now. So we've got our sharp pencil and we've gone 13 minutes into the video, but hopefully those other tips are helping along the way. When it comes to drawing, one of the biggest things that I know a lot of people ask me, and I used to struggle with, is I draw really heavy. Can I still do this? Now, I am the worst culprit for holding my pencil really, really hard. And I used to criticize myself a lot for this and think that that was wrong. And I definitely encourage you to learn to hold your pressure lighter. But I've also learned that there are times where harder pressure is okay. And there are different pencil grips that can help you with that. So one of the things that I've learned is actually just get used to experimenting with holding your pencil in different ways to get different results. So when you're trying to do detailed lines, for example, I actually really do like holding my pencil like this. It'll cramp your hands, I can tell you that. So I like using this angle for lots of fine details and firmer pressure, or this angle like this to get those same fine details. I find that if I'm trying to hold the pencil any other way or further back, I get really shaky and I find that hard. On the other hand, if I'm trying to draw from, say, white to the full color and I'm wanting a lighter pressure, I can't do lighter pressure with my hand this close to the bottom. It's really hard. So that's where I'll hold my pencil further back and try to tilt it more. So rather than going down, you're holding it a bit more on the side, and all of a sudden it's really easy to do a lighter touch on the paper. You can see that difference. I don't think I could actually draw that light if I was holding the pencil this close, partly because your hand's in the way, you actually can't, you can't hold it there. But I don't think, let me try. It's actually really hard to try and draw that light. So if you're someone who's struggling with using too much pressure, you can see there I can't even get that light by holding my pencil that close. So if you're struggling to use lighter pressure, biggest tip, hold the pencil further back. Try to put it more on its side and less down, because holding it like this now just feels wrong. So holding it further back, you're naturally going to, 'cause I don't know about you, but I rest my hand. Holding it further back, you're naturally going to tilt it more. And all of a sudden, it's a whole lot easier to draw really, really light, where it's almost, on the camera at least, it's almost invisible, but there is definitely pencil going down. And those lighter layers are going to help so much more when it comes to learning to layer and blend. But it is important to know that we do need both of these when it comes to drawing. It's not all about light layers, which I'll show you in a moment. So hopefully that helped. When it comes to actually learning to color, one of the things that I found is the most useful exercise to try is actually learning to vary your pressure. So like I've just shown you with drawing light, it is a really good practice to just do like a little practice exercise of drawing light and then slowly getting darker.
What cardstock would you recommend for this kind of work?
So at the moment, I'm using Nina Bristol Vellum. You can do this on any paper. And part paper is a big thing where it definitely is a preference thing as well. So I find this is good if you have paper with a little bit of texture. And I've always just found that the Bristol vellum that Nina sells is like an affordable version compared to a lot of the big brands. I tend to hesitate on using, say, Strathmore or Canson for this kind of work, because if you're spending, well, at least in Australia, 50 cents to $1 per page, you don't want to waste it on practice, right? But if you are sort of like unsure about that, even just find yourself like a drawing sketchbook, because they often have like some basic texture. Like it doesn't have to be professional paper to be doing this. Printer paper isn't as good for this because it will lack all texture. So you can do it, but you won't get that resistance against your pencil. And so it's a little bit harder to sort of practice these kind of things. But as you can see here, just building that up, it just sort of teaches you, and then maybe you'll stop halfway and put your hand a little bit closer to try and build up a bit more.
How many layers would you recommend to do something realistic?
There is no set number of layers. And I think sometimes if we focus too much on the number of layers, then you sort of end up putting yourself in a box too much. So I'll show you a little bit as we learn to put this into practice on a page, how the number of layers isn't really the thing to focus on. It's more about using the technique and kind of learning to feel the paper and feel your pencils to learn how many more layers you need from where you are. So I'll sort of walk you through that a little bit more. So here, see, now I've changed my pencil because now I'm wanting the hard color at the end. And so now I'm actually holding it quite differently and pressing quite firm at the end. But see, now I've got the light right to the dark. Just ignore my all over the place. But just by practicing this, you're teaching yourself, okay, I can do light, I can do dark. If you can learn to do this, then you can learn to kind of take that into any kind of shading. This is like the first step. So if you can't do this well, practice this for a while and everything else will feel a lot easier once you've got this. So I think we're ready to introduce another color. Do we have any questions before I do that? Now I'm going to show, no, we're not using Prismacolor today. We're going to bring in
a few questions. When will you do a fur tutorial?
A fur tutorial? I don't draw a lot of fur, but it's a good idea. Might be something I'll look at, so I'll keep that in mind.
If you were to buy quality pencils open stock, which colours are a must-have?
Oh, that's a hard one. It depends so much on what you are wanting to colour. So that is actually a really hard question. I think if you were to pick, say, 12, I mean, think about the colours that come in a set of 12. Basically, your primary colours is a really good starting point. And then from there, it's really thinking about what you're colouring to kind of work out what other colours you might use. But I would always, so if I was buying it, I would probably start with each of my primary and secondary colours. So like your basic, that's what, 12 colours, and include a black and a brown. And then I would buy a white, but only with certain brands, because some brands, the white is useless. The brands that I would always buy my white in, even if I've bought a set of the cheapest pencils, is I would go and buy a white Prismacolor, because Prismacolor's white is really good, or Luminance. Luminance also do a really good white. And that you can buy open stock, so it's worth that. And then I would probably try to buy a lighter or a darker version of those same colors that I already have, because then you can actually start to do the kind of blending and layering that I'm about to show you. So I've now got a dark blue and a light blue to show you the next step. That one's already sharp.
How long have you been doing artwork for, and how long do your drawings usually take?
So I've been doing some kind of art since I was a kid, but I actually stopped for a long time. This pencil's not sharpening. I think there's something in my sharpener. Let me do that while I answer this question. So when I left high school, I didn't really do a lot of art for a while. I did a lot of graphic design and online art, and that kind of became my outlet for a bit. But I also just had a complete change of career for a while and I was going the wrong way. That's why I wasn't working. Live stream pressure. It's changing how I do things. I'm just joking. So then it was actually after having kids that I kind of rediscovered my love for all of this. But in saying that, I never used to draw with coloured pencils. Coloured pencils is something I've only discovered in the last 2 years. And it's been because of YouTube and because of coloring books and even drawing. I started designing coloring books before I picked up colored pencils again, which is a little bit backwards, but it's been great. It's been wonderful to jump back into them. So, and when it comes to a page and how long they take, it's completely variable, and a lot of it depends on how much effort I want to put into a page. Some of my pages take an hour or two. Some of them, I think the longest I've spent on one was about 16 hours. So it really, again, is how much detail do you want to go into? How much effort do you want to put in? And there are some shortcuts, and I've got a few shortcuts I want to show you a bit later as well. So let me show you now how you can blend and layer two colors together. I do want to clarify first the difference between blending versus layering, because they are not the same thing, and there are differences, but I think that the best way to use them is actually use them both together. So when we talk about blending, now I'm going to show you a really bad example of blending, but to try and help you understand what blending is, because not all pencils can blend, but all pencils can layer. And if you buy pencils that are oil-based, generally, they're not going to blend as well. And a lot of people then think that they're bad pencils, when in fact, they just need to learn to layer them. So when it comes to blending, technically blending is kind of like mushing two colors together. So if you were to put two colors side by side, now I don't know if this brand will let me do this. I don't remember, but technically you should be able to just push these colors together to see if they blend. And I don't recommend this as a method, but let's see. I don't really think this brand is made for blending. And you can see like this brand will blend if you layer it properly as a part of your blending process. Whereas if I show you a Prismacolor, which are known for their blending, right? We grab a Prismacolor and we do the same terrible blending method. We shove them next to each other. We can then keep pushing them, even with really hard pressure, and you actually get that crossover, even though there's like no extra paper to sort of push down. See how we get a blend, even though I haven't really tried to layer them. I've just kind of mushed the colors together, and we actually get a blend out of that somehow. So I don't know if we can get a better shot of that. Top down, maybe. So I don't know if you can see the difference there. It's a little bit, sorry, I did them pretty small. But the Prismacolors are known for their blending, and a lot of people use them as a beginner pencil. Even I talk about them as a beginner pencil, because the pencils themselves just blend. You can shove two colors together, or like a lot of people will put two colors together, and this actually upsets me when people tell me this is their answer. Right? Especially when they do this after I've taught them the right way, and they come to me on TikTok of all places and they say, use a white pencil. And they say, just do this. And this is how you blend pencils. And they shove the white pencil on top and they just swirl it around. Yes, it works, but look at the difference in the color. It is lightening that color while it is blending everything together. So yes, it is blended like butter, but it is also muted all your colors, because those original colors were like this. So I'm not a fan of white pencil blending. It does work, and it works really well if you want a pastel blend, but if you want to keep your colors, stay away from the white pencil blend, okay? You can do it with a blending pencil. That's what the blending pencil is supposed to do, where it actually does the same thing without adding the white color. However, you don't need a blending pencil if you learn to layer, and you can use layering and blending together. And that is a technique that I try and teach people, because then you can do it with any sets of pencils. You don't need to only have pencils like Prismacolors that do the blending for you. So the way layering works is that we kind of take this technique that we've used, but we're going to layer the two pencils on top. So to show you what each layer would look like if we were trying to do this blend here. And it doesn't matter what order you do the colors in, okay? So you can kind of get a feel for it. I sometimes do light first, I sometimes do dark first. But essentially our bottom layer is going to go from dark to light, like this, okay? And then our top layer, or our second layer, is going to start on this side, but they'll be on top of each other. I'm just showing you. and it will go to light. Now that's just the first layer, and to do layers well, we would often do multiple layers, but essentially this is what we're doing. We're taking these two, where this one goes from full color to nothing and full color to nothing, we're going to stack them on top of each other. And I'm sure you can imagine the color will kind of shine through and the colors will end up blending together. So let's show you on this side what happens when we do that. And we'll start with just one layer. And this is where the amount of pressure you use will determine how many layers you need. And there is no right or wrong answer, but a lot of this will be determined by the types of pencils you use and the amount of experience that you have. My general advice is to start with lighter layers until you become more familiar with your paper and your pencils and just with the technique. And as you become more experienced, you'll start to learn that you can add a little bit more pressure and you'll start to get better at doing it in less layers. So it's really not about you need 5 layers or you need 2 layers. I sometimes do it in 2 layers and I probably wouldn't recommend that. But it's really up to you. The more layers you do, you'll probably find that it's going to be smoother, but you don't need to do 30 layers. That's probably overkill. So I'm now going back on a 3rd layer and I'm doing the same thing. So I'm basically repeating this top one and layering it on top again. Now this is layering, but if you're layering, it's going to naturally use the blending ability of the pencil if the pencil has that blendability built into it. And so pencils like Prismacolors will do this better because while you are layering, it will also kind of blend too. But even Crayola can do this well. And Polychromos that people despise because they can't layer will do this well as well. So you can do this with any brand of pencils. And once you sort of get about halfway in, you can start to have a look and work out, okay, like it's dark here and I can kind of see a bit of a patch here where maybe my dark's gone too far. So this is where, when you're about halfway in, you can start to use a bit more pressure, start to sort of fill the gaps and start to kind of adjust as you go, just based on looking at what's there. So like if you get halfway and you've used light layers, you can adjust it by just adding a bit more light blue, a bit heavier, or adding a bit more dark blue, a bit heavier this side if you're wanting it to go further in. So by adding layers, you actually have a lot of control to kind of adjust it. Whereas if I looked here and went, okay, it's too dark, I don't want any more dark, I could put the blue pencil down, the dark blue, and I could only use light from now on and take the light all the way across. So you actually have a lot of control at this point as to how you want it to look. If you keep doing light layers, you can keep adjusting as you go. You can change direction. And the other thing I'm doing, which is pretty subtle, so you might not notice, is I'm actually not using strokes like this. They're straight strokes. I'll use the darker one to show you a bit easier so you can see on the camera. I'm actually not using strokes like this. I'm actually using strokes like this, but because they're so close, so I'm using circular strokes, but because they're so close and because they're flat on their side, which is hard to sort of show you better, they end up blurring together a bit more. I don't know if you can see that now that I've explained it. And so what that does is it means it removes, if I did the straight lines, you might end up having more edges, more areas that have bigger chunks of color, whereas this is going to spread out the color more. So when people talk about using circular strokes, it doesn't mean you have to sit here and draw this, although that might also work. You can do it bigger like this, and it will just create a little bit more of an even color by doing that. So that's my version of circular strokes, is actually quite big circular strokes, but just by creating a little bit of a loop at the top, or even you can sort of do it a bit more like this. It doesn't have to be literal circles like this. You can do like little circles and stuff like that to kind of fill the area. It just stops you having really obvious lines. So that's another key. And because by doing circles too, you can change direction. Like I can go any direction and it still ends up filling the page quite evenly. So just a little extra tip to throw in there. But let's finish this off.
While you're finishing that, Sarah, Holly has mentioned that she's been struggling with a lot of bad chronic pain and just wanted to say that your videos have helped distract her. and that she watches your videos to help calm her down.
Thank you, Holly. That's really nice to hear. That's, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear about the pain, but it's really nice to hear that I can help in some way through entertainment. So, yeah. We have a lot of people that watch, and even artists that watch that have chronic pain or that are working through chronic pain and are looking for ways to even be able to draw with less pain. So we even had Dr. Mike come in on one of our videos to try and talk through some tips for artists. So if you haven't seen that, it was a part of the diamond painting video that we did that Kirsten can pop a link in the comments if you didn't get to see that segment. He had some really good tips on just reducing that pain from like long coloring sessions, like which I'm probably most guilty of, of coloring for hours and not taking a break and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a big priority for us to think about those things. Now, once we're done here, an optional step. So I would consider that done. But if you are someone who if you still have some white specks and you don't want to add any more color, that is where those blending pencils that I mentioned can just help you to get rid of those last little colors. If you're wondering why this one is so small, it is not because I use it all the time. They actually start as this. I actually don't use it very often at all. The reason it's so small is because I pressed too hard and I snapped it. So tip, don't press too hard on a blending pencil. But you can just on this, just go over the top as well. Probably can't even see what I'm doing here. Let me show you on this one and you'll see the difference it makes. This will just kind of remove, it basically does that extra little blending and it will just remove the white under the page. So if you do have sore hands, this can kind of take place of those last few layers sometimes and just get rid of that white. You can see the difference on the top of this one between that top bit and that bottom bit of just using that, how much difference that has made. So it can really fill out that extra color and kind of save you having to do so many extra layers with your pencils. So, and the last thing I like to do, because this has got some little crumbs, and if you try and push them away, you might end up smudging your work like I did up here. You can't even see that, but, or if you blow them, you might end up spitting on your artwork. So I have this makeup brush and I just gently brush it away. Makeup brushes are always handy for art stuff. So you can buy art brushes for this, but makeup brushes are just as good. So yeah.
What brand of blending pencil was that?
So that one was a Caran d'Ache blender. I think now, I'm not sure if you can still buy them as these sticks. I think now they make it in a pencil form, more like the Prismacolor one, which I have here somewhere as well. The Prismacolor one is also very good. I also have a Derwent one. So you can buy ones that look more like this. That's a burnish. That's not even a blender. I have one somewhere. But that's that burnisher. That's what the other ones look like. And I think the Caran d'Ache ones now look like that as well. But the tip is the same. And you can just use this in a sharpener. I just sharpen it. So when it gets dirty, you can just run it on some paper to get rid of that. But when it gets blunt, you can then sharpen it just in your normal sharpener. Just try not to break it like I did. But now I just have a few miniature ones instead of one long one. So it's not that bad. It still works. So yes, so that is our first step to colouring. And I would love to show you in a few moments how we can apply this to a colouring page, because it's all good and well to do this and make pretty gradients, and I do a lot of that on my channel. And I'll tell you what, actually practicing the gradients of two colours, when I did that and I did a few videos on that, I went back to doing colouring and I was like, wow, actually colouring's a lot easier after just obsessively drawing gradients. So I do recommend just drawing gradients, making pretty colours, because then it makes the colouring so much easier. But I will show you in a moment how we can do that. But I think for some fun, do we want to look at Jazza's bag now or later? Because I really want to have a look. Tell me in the comments if you want to have a look at Jazza's bag now, or if you want to wait a little bit. Or do we want to have a look at the planner or the stickers or anything else? I just want a little like change of pace for a minute. And I'm also just going to eat a few M&Ms because look, we went to the M&M shop in Las Vegas and they had a pick your own color, and you know that I can't help but pick my own colors. And so we totally took the color catalog in and we picked pretty colors. The only problem is it means that the M&Ms that we bought which you can see more of in the back. Really expensive, but at least they're pretty. So I'm just going to nibble on some of these because I need a sugar hit. Any questions, Shane? What's the verdict? Do we want to look at Jazz's bag yet?
What's the difference between a blender and burnish, and yes to the bag?
All right. The blender and burnisher question is a great question. And I'll be honest, I might get this wrong. But in my time of understanding the difference, the blender is intended more, like it has like a bit more of a waxy sort of finish to it. I actually use the blender as a burnisher. So that's probably my misuse a little bit too. The blender is more like I was showing you that it actually blends, like I talked about that process with the white pencil. It actually blends the colors together. The burnisher is actually more intended to just remove the white from the page and flatten the color. So if you think about the paper and the paper texture as like mountains and valleys, right? If you think about the texture on like a microscopic level, it's like mountains and valleys. And the pencil usually will just sit on the mountains and not get into the valleys. The whole point to a burnisher, or when you just press really hard with your pencils, is it flattens that texture. So all the mountains end up going flat with the valleys and you end up with just like a flat plane. And so if you're pressing hard on your final layer, you are actually burnishing. That's what you're doing. Whereas a burnisher pencil is like, if you don't do that with your colored pencils, you can use a burnisher pencil that's, again, it's just a colorless pencil. So you can do that to flatten the page. It will then get rid of those little white specks again. It kind of flattens the texture. The catch with doing that with anything, or, you know, doing that final layer with really hard pressure, is that once your paper is flat, it usually won't let you put any more color down. So it's always the last step. And that's why if you're using really hard pressure in your coloring, you'll find it really hard to layer unless you save the hard pressure till last. So the burnishing step is really just about kind of flattening. It almost kind of seals your work a little bit without actually a sealant. It's just sort of flattens it out and goes, we're done. Whereas the blender is more about actually blending the pigments. So they kind of feel like they do the same thing, even though they're actually doing different things. And I often use the blender pencil to burnish at the same time, which is why I use too much pressure and I break them. So
another question from me before Jazz's bag.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to colour pages still in the book, or do you remove them first? And if you remove them, how do you get them back in again?
I never remove them. I do like, so like I've actually printed this page today. I like printables for that reason. But if a page is in a book, I will colour it in the book. I never cut them out. I know people do, and they use like a knife. But then I don't know if you'd be able to get it back in. I think once it's out, it's out. So, yeah. Let's find this bag. Where is it? Oh, it's right beside me. My team is so organised today. Unlike me, who was frantically panicking, going, I didn't really think about what we're doing until this morning, and we're doing streaming in half an hour. So, bit of context. So if you follow Jazza and if you watch his vlog channel, he has been talking about this art bag for months. And I've been watching it very closely. I've been very excited because I have been shopping for not necessarily an art-only bag for me, but like I went to VidCon recently, and even last year went to VidCon as well. And not only do they not let you take a big backpack in, they need like a small backpack, but I was like, I just want a bag that can fit like my laptop, my iPad, that doesn't look terrible, but ideally something that I can also take like a stack of markers, potentially for me, like a coloring book, even on the plane. I like to have a few things that I can do. Last time I ended up unpacking all of my Castle Art pencils because it was the only sort of zip case pencil thing that I had. And I picked, like, I took my Prismacolors out and literally went, which are the essential, like, 50 colors that I need? And then I went and put them in the Castle Arts thing and created my own little mini travel Prismacolor collection. And I went to all this effort, but then I didn't really have a proper bag. It just ended up being, I actually found a pretty good backpack online, but it was, I made it work for what I did. It wasn't purpose built. And I don't think I've really found yet a purpose built bag until Jazz sent this yesterday. And I'm going to pull it out because I'm talking about it. I'm not showing it. We opened this yesterday and I've got the two different options here. that he was looking at. And again, he hasn't even shown this on his channel yet in the complete state. I pulled this out of the bag and Shane was trying to steal it because he really likes it too. So I think we are going to be hunting on the Kickstarter tomorrow because Shane was actually like, you know, will you use this? Because I'll use this. And I'm like, no, I think I'm
pretty sure he put a note in the box saying that the big one was for Shane and the little one was for you.
No, he didn't. That's a lie. I was like, genuinely, I think I really want this. But, so, okay. I don't even know where to start. Okay. There's too much to show you. Let me start by showing you the colours because you know how much I love colours. So, there are two bags first. We have the big bag and we have the little bag. And you can buy them both or you can buy either one. I already can see uses for both. So I think we're just going to end up buying the set again because we've already decided we're just going to have to buy another one because like we clearly both want one. And because I think Shane's probably going to take this one because let me show you the other colours.
Shane will be taking that one.
Okay, so you don't normally get this is sample, right? This is like pre-release early access, right? We know people. The benefits of being a YouTuber, right? The benefits of having friends like Jazza. So this is the one. You've got this beautiful cover, which if you know Jazza, this is his wall art, which is really cool. So you get like a piece of Jazza with you everywhere you go. So this is the bag, but you can also get it in other colours. So let me just do a little...
Did he include a set of placemats?
we could use these as placemats, actually. I wonder if it's... We totally could. So these are the other colour options that you can buy. So you can have a red bag, which is cool. Or you can have a grey bag. I feel like you could customise these two. I totally want to see someone like hit this with Poscas or something. Or it feels like it would ruin it, but I also like kind of think it would be cool. So you've got the grey, which is really cool. I'm sure these have like official colour names. I'm sorry, Jazza, if you're watching, or I don't know if we're even supposed to be showing all this today. I can't help myself. It's too fun. But I think this is my colour. The teal. I think it was called Phthalo turquoise, but I'm like, no, this is teal. This is my colour. Can you not tell by my office? It's almost my colour. It's like a dark teal. I should tell him he needs to update his Kickstarter to call it dark teal. Do you think he would? So I think this is going to be my colour. And then Shane can have the black one. But yeah, so there's the colours. So, and yeah, we might just... They're actually really like thick. It's like really high quality.
We've had our first super thanks from Heldren, who wanted to thank you because they want an activity that they could do with their 10-year-old daughter and found your videos and are now hooked.
Oh,
so cool.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that support. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to have a little, okay. Again, I'm like, where do I start? Because this is like Christmas. Christmas in July. Does everyone else, is that an Australian thing or is that like a international thing? It's Christmas in July. No, you know what? It's actually my birthday next week. So this is an early birthday present for me.
The small bag.
No, all of it. Can I just have a slight sidetrack moment though? Do you like my new bin? It's empty. I need to put some rubbish in it. No, okay, that's okay. Okay, now I'm just excited. Can you tell? Okay, so let's have a look. So this bag has so many pockets. I probably should have looked at it beforehand, but it's way more fun doing it on camera. So we've also got, so from what I remember from one of the vlogs, it's like convertible, I think is the idea. So we've got, this is not really a sitting down demonstration, but you've got the option to do it like a messenger bag type thing, like, you know, which I think is probably how I'd do it. But you've also got a really sturdy handle.
You make it look so easy.
Because I'm like sitting down, I'm like pro model sitting down on my desk. There's also, are they here? I thought he gave us handles.
They're inside.
Ah, they're inside. Look at that. So these look really like, again, everything's like really high quality. By the way, I probably need to clarify, we're not being sponsored for this, okay? I'm just excited. Jazza did give this to me for free. He's a friend, but this is like not like a sponsored bit in this live stream, just to be clear.
I have a feeling he's going to want them back though, after the way that you've...
It's probably a good thing it's not a sponsored bit. No, so this you attach on somewhere. I'm going to do it wrong, but that's okay. I'm thinking it's here. That would make sense, or here. No, here makes more sense. Otherwise, what would this be for? Let's try it. So we've got here, and I'm guessing here. It's like a game. I just like compartments. I like compartments, and I like storage, and I like organizing. So this whole thing is just exciting for me. All right, here we go. Look at that. It's now a backpack. I have to stand up for this. Oh, not that any of the cameras are set up to actually... Look at that. I have a backpack now. An art backpack. Oh, it's actually really comfy too. So I think this is coming with us to America when we go to Vid Summit later in the year. Just let me show you off my new art backpack. It's pretty cool. So anyway, so that does that. And from what I understand, the small one is the same. So you've got the nice handle, you've got the big strap, and you can make that one into a backpack too. So that is like perfect VidCon size backpack, which we had trouble with because they don't like big backpacks.
That one will really suit you.
Can you stop trying to steal the big bag? We will buy another one, okay? We just have to get on the Kickstarter early. So on the Kickstarter, just quickly, I don't even remember much, but the Kickstarter isn't live now. I think Shane has a link. Have you given the link to Kristen?
It goes live tomorrow.
It goes live tomorrow, but I have heard that they're expecting to sell out. So you probably, if you are interested, you probably do want to jump on tomorrow. But I think there's going to be options where you can buy the two bags together or the bags separately, or there's going to be like a big bundle and early bird people get like all the, Kickstarter's always like that, like you stack it and you get early, you get discounts.
One with art supplies, isn't there?
There's one with like $100 worth of art supplies being added to it as well. So it's worth having a look. So let's have a look in the bag because that's what bags are for, to put stuff in. There's a pocket at the back. So, actually there's so there's a little pocket here. And then we have a big pocket. Oh, that's like padded. Oh, that would be so good for like a laptop. Oh, it's even got, so it's like a pocket in there as well. But that, I don't know how to describe that. That's like laptop protection padding, like really thick. That would be really good for a laptop. We've got some side pockets that would fit a small drink bottle, maybe a can of drink, or art supplies. I wonder if this might be too big. I happen to have a drink bottle here that I'm supposed to be drinking through the stream so that I don't lose my energy.
Sue has done a super thanks and she has asked, can you use a liquid medium to help blend coloured pencil?
Yes, you can. I actually did a video testing, I think it was 12 different ways to blend pencils. So Kristen can find that bit. Let's just give Kristen a little cheer for all the links that she's trying to find for you guys. She'll find that video and pop a link in the comments for you of the video where I actually compared all the different ones. Okay, so we have another pocket inside. Oh, there are so many pockets. You might need top camera for this one, Shane. I don't know if that's going to help you though. No, that's just like, it's too big. we have, there we go. Hidden pockets. So just for your chocolates, I guess. And we have a really big pocket inside. Then there's so many pockets. I love this. Woo! This looks like, yeah, that's what we do here. We load it up with our markers. These are thin markers too. I wonder if it will fit something thicker.
Do you think he has a Kickstarter where you can order like 100 additional ones of those inserts to fit all of your pencils in?
Like extra inserts. That's a good idea. Yeah, I wonder if you could get extra inserts added on. That's a good idea. We should ask him. All right, so it can fit a hoo-hoo markers and it can fit Copics. What else? I reckon a pencil might fall out of that because even the thick marker, it's a little bit loose. So I'm not sure about a pencil. Yeah, the pencils are a bit loose. You could put 2 pencils together. There you go. What about paint markers? My chair didn't like that. This is the test. Oh, that's a Posca 5. Not bad. And it's double-sided. That's actually quite a lot. So you could do pencils in here. You just do 2 each. There you go. So that can sit in there. My pencil. Oh no, the pencils weren't too tall. I thought my pencils were too tall, but no, they fit in there. And then this one is just more things. More things. More things. There's so many pockets. I love it. All right. And then I was going to say that's Shane's bag, but no, I'm not agreeing to that. And then we have, all right, we'll finish up in a minute. I'm sorry. I'm so just like, maybe this is way more exciting for me than everyone watching. So we're going to move on. We have another one of these in this one, which is awesome. And we have, oh, there's extra straps for this one. So you've actually got the same thing for the small one.
That one becomes a backpack too.
Yes, it also becomes a backpack. I thought you'd share them with the big one, but no, of course it has a separate one. It's a separate bag. And we have a zip inside this one. This looks like it would fit a decent sized iPad. And we have pocket at the back. I think this one's my personal favorite, but that's just because I like things to not be like massively big. But I think that one's probably way more practical, so I think I'd probably just get both. All right. If you have any questions about that, post them in the comments and we'll try to get answers. But I think ideally, all the information will probably be on the Kickstarter. So
yeah, I think Kristen's going to put the Kickstarter link if she hasn't already. And
go ask Jazza.
I think you can register today, but it goes up live tomorrow.
Okay, so you can go today and, I don't know, they probably want your email or something.
Do you play that ukulele in the background?
No, that ukulele's broken. Yeah, those strings are kind of just holding on.
I think you snapped it in the video.
There's a video on my channel when I did that.
Kristen?
Those ukuleles, I was about to say they're holding on by a thread. That's the point of strings. But yes, the strings are not actually even attached. They're kind of like just wound around and we're hoping that nobody knocks them because it's very much broken. Yeah. Should we colour something? I should have some water. I did say just comment about my lack of drinking water.
You're going to have all these people like in the replay who, you know how people comment just the time code of when the actual colouring starts, except it's going to be like an hour and a half.
She doesn't start colouring till an hour. No, but we've done a lot of really useful things. And that's the point of live streams. We learn, we chat, we have fun, we open fun things. We do it. So now we have a colouring page. And this colouring page I have chosen is actually from the new 2024 colouring planner. I thought it'd be fun to colour something from that. It's the last one I designed, so it's one of my favourites just because it's the most recent one I drew, so they tend to be my favourites because I'm not sick of them yet. That's a bad thing to say, right, about my own product? But no, that's okay. So what I do before I start colouring, and now this feels really promotional because we've just gone through a bunch of products, but that's okay. Before I start colouring, one of the things I know a lot of people get stuck with is choosing colours, and I have a solution for that. It's to use the colour cube, which is something I've made, but you don't have to use that. You can also just look online and find colours as well. I do have a lot on my website, on my blog, where you can just have a look at some colours that I've suggested, or on my Instagram, the colour catalogue. You can also find a whole bunch of free ideas there. But basically, I just find that if you start a page and you look at this and you go, where do I even start? It can be really overwhelming. And everyone that I've talked to that uses like some of the resources that we've created have just said that it has taken so much pressure off. And it means that rather than spending an hour panicking, or you get halfway into the page and you're not sure if it's going to turn out right, you actually just take a lot of the pressure off because you know that if the colors look good, then the rest will look good as well. So I've actually gone ahead and chosen some color palettes already from the Color Cube. So if you're not sure what the Color Cube is, this is the Color Cube. We will pop a link to that in the comments as well. And it's basically a big fancy box full of color inspiration. So I have picked 2 color palettes from this that we are going to use for this page today. So I've got these 2, and I thought we could maybe use a little bit of both because I really like the feel of this particular palette. So we've got a bit of both on the back and the front here. This will help us just to kind of pick our colors. And I've got, I haven't even picked the pencils yet, so I'll show you how I do that in a sec. And if we want some darker or lighter versions of them, we've also just got something here to just help us pick those out. I also thought, like in terms of books, I would expect a few red books on the bookshelf too. So I also grabbed this one that has a few similar colors from this one. Like it's got sort of the black and it's got these 2 colors here that match here. So I thought there's a good chance that this color palette will go with this color palette because 3 of the colors are already very similar. So I was just thinking, let's just try and kind of just join them together. And I think that looks pretty good just glancing at it, and I'm pretty happy with that. So if I like them here, I'm probably going to like them when I've colored the page. And it's as simple as that. Now, when it comes to how accurately we need to match the pencils, it really doesn't have to be that accurate. However, I do recommend always grabbing some kind of scrap paper, and we'll just flip this over for us, to test out your colors first. Because even if you're using, say, the color companion that we have that gives you the matches, if there's like slight variations and something's a bit more blue or something's a bit more red or something's a bit more green, you want to make sure that the colors look good together when you put them on the paper. So I'm going to just have a little bit of a hunt and show you how I find the colors using our Star Joy set. But we're just going to start with a few so that I can show you how we apply that blending to a few objects. And I'm not expecting we're going to finish this whole page because that might take me 2 to 3 hours, and I don't really want the stream to go for 2 to 3 hours. So we might just pick a couple of books to work on so I can show you some different techniques. So if we were to start with, say, these 2 brown colors, let me spin my pencils around. I would instantly just go, and I can actually flip this over because this goes to the edge. Start by just looking at the barrels and find the colors that are closest. If you have swatched out your pencils, and by that I mean doing something like this, it's a lot easier because then you can match it to this and it's going to be more accurate. I haven't done that for the Star Joys, so I'm just going to work off the barrel and then I'll draw them out and see. The reason this isn't as good is because sometimes the barrel color doesn't actually match the pencil color, so you're taking a little bit more of a gamble. But we'll just see how we go. So this is not bad of a match. This is a little bit darker, but I think overall it's a pretty good color. So let's just put that down here. We're just going to do a sort of heavy color block so that we can match it a bit closer. It's not perfect, but it does fit in that general feel of what I'm going to. So I'm going to put that one aside and go, great, that's pretty good. To make it easier for myself, I might even write down what the color is or what the number is, just so that if I need to come back to it, I know exactly which pencil is that color, in case I have a few similar ones. This one's also kind of in between these 2. So let's just see what this one is. It's actually pretty close to this one. Again, it's not perfect, but it fits this tone. And in fact, if I use these 2, I'm going to get a very similar sort of look to this palette in general. So we've got Sienna Brown Light. I mean, the fact that it's the same name means those 2 colors are going to work together. So that's a good starting point. Now we could just leave that there and be like, great, we found those 2 colors, or we could maybe find a 3rd or 4th that are similar, especially if we're wanting sort of darker and lighter options. Because these 2 colors work quite well, they could even be the darker and lighter version of this color if we're wanting to do some blending. But let's just try and find, say, a darker one of this color. And I'm thinking this might be good. Oh, so that's a bit different. And when I look at this against this color, I don't know that it's a good fit, but I'm still just going to write it down. It might be good for a different book. Oh, it's 20. No, it's just 20. Okay. So sometimes it's just good to have some different options. What have we got here? Tree bark. So already, like, these aren't all perfect matches for the color card, but the color card is supposed to really just act as inspiration to get us started. So if I look at these and I go, actually, I really like these 4 colors together, or even these 3 colors together, the color palette's done its job. So we're off to a pretty good start so far. What we might do before we go any further is pause here, and I'll show you how to use, we might use the sienna brown and the tree bark to actually show you how I would use some of that basic shading that we did on one of these books. Now, the interesting thing about these books is that these are not 3D, these are 2D. And a lot of the coloring books and the drawings that we come across are like that. So it's not obvious where you would put shading, which also means you kind of get to choose. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by just doing some basic, well, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can either start by coloring everything with the base color and a light layer and then doing the shading, or we can work in reverse and do the shading first. It's up to you how you like to work. If I'm drawing something more realistic, I sometimes like to do the shading first because then I sort of know what I'm doing and I can work backwards. If I'm doing something like this, that's kind of a flat object and the shading's more just intended to sort of make it a little bit more realistic without going crazy, because this isn't going to end up looking super realistic the way it is, I might do the normal color first. It's really just up to you how you want to do it. So we're going to start with our sienna brown, and we might just pick, as a simple example, this book here. So we're just going to do a light layer over the whole thing using our circular motion. And because we're just working from a light to dark color, because the dark color is going to be our shading color, I'm actually not too worried about leaving gaps for the dark color because I can layer the dark on top of the light and that will be fine. Now I'm going to leave the 2 stripes because we could actually make them a different color. Maybe a red, or even the lighter color might actually be a nice band on the book. Okay, so we're just going to first lay it down. Then we might go to our dark color and actually work out, okay, where do we want to shade this? Now, I do have a whole video about basic shading that will give you some tips on where you can actually shade things to make things a little bit more realistic, looking at shadows and things like that. So an object, this picture in particular is probably not the best example for detailed shading, and I have another picture that we'll look at shortly afterwards if we have some time, which we should have today, to show you a bit more advanced shading. But something like this, I might just decide to shade along the edges to make the book sides feel a little bit more rounded. So what I mean by that is we might just do a shadow along this edge and along this edge, because those are going to be sort of, I don't know how to explain it. Let's just do it and you'll see. So I'm just going to sharpen this pencil. They're not quite sharp. It was actually pretty close to sharp. That's okay. So we're just going to do it along the edge. And I'm actually pressing quite hard along this edge because I want right at the edge to be dark. And then, like we did here, we're going from dark to light with this shadow. But I want my dark to light to finish really quickly. So I don't want this gradient to go all the way. I only want it to go to about here. So I'm going to do this very lightly and just stop it fairly closely from the edge. But it's actually the very same principle that we've done here. Just dark to light along that edge. So I'm only doing it about like this much to about this much. I'm going to do the same thing the opposite way on the other side. Now you can always add more, but it's much harder to go back unless you've got like really blendable pencils like the Prismacolors. Then it's a bit easier to go backwards, but it's always easier to go darker. So that's something to consider. Prismacolors can let you lighten the pencil sometimes, but you don't want to assume that you can. Okay, so that's That's created a bit of a curvature on each side, but if we maybe, I'm thinking we might stretch it a little bit further to make the book a little bit more rounded. So I'm going to bring it in just a little bit further. It's always better to just stop and look and go, okay, do I want it to go further rather than going too far, too fast, and then not being able to go back. And this is where that layering comes in, because I've done the light layer. I've now done that layer. And now that I'm sort of happy with where the shadows are, my only job is to actually fill in the rest with my lighter color. And I might do this over 2 layers, or if I'm feeling confident, I could just do it in one. But if you're wanting it to kind of have that really nicely blended look, one's probably not the best idea. But now I'm basically going to go over everything with my lighter color, but just watching that I don't lighten the dark area too much. So that's the one part where we're now going the opposite direction over this, but we can go quite a bit because we pressed hard enough with that first one that it shouldn't let the light color overtake it. You can see that there. And then we can fill in that middle area. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm sort of thinking I might need even a slightly darker shadow, because the shadow is so subtle that it's almost invisible. So I probably should have picked a darker color for my shading to start with, but that's all practice. And I can, like I said, you can always go a little bit darker. So what I might do in a moment is grab a darker brown again and just try a light layer and see if I can make that area a bit darker. I try not to use black for shadows if you can avoid it. So here's a darker color. We can just do a little test on our little one here. We try to avoid, let me just see what this is. So if anyone else is copying, they can. So here we have, it's quite a bit darker. This is called Good Earth. So again, we're just doing a line down the side. This is a little bit harder because I pressed quite hard on the last layer. So I did, like I said, I kind of burnished it instead of doing a light layer. So that was on me. And I've just gone out of lines, which makes this a little bit harder to press down on top. It's still working, but it's resisting a little bit. And that's sort of something that I've done because I burnished it too early when I actually wasn't finished. So just something to keep in mind, that if you're not confident yet on the colour, keep the layers light so that you can really keep playing around with the colour and adding more layers if you need to. So I'm a little bit happy with that. And then I can use that tree bark as like a middle colour and bring it in a bit further to transition between the two. I'm also not that familiar with these pencils, so this is kind of interesting for me because I'm using these like I'd use my Prismacolors, and because they perform differently, I'm having to sort of remind myself that they're different pencils. So again, it is some of it is just becoming familiar with the medium that you're using.
We have about 350 people watching at the moment on the stream.
That's awesome. All right, now can we see? Let's get my brush to brush away the little crumbs we've got there. Can we see that shading? Does that make sense? We've got a little bit of a 3D effect. I'm probably a little bit rough on there because these pencils are not really blending pencils. They are layering pencils, but I did want to show you that we don't need Prismacolors to pull off these effects. So hopefully that has demonstrated that. I just want to grab a different color. I just realized that reds, as much as I want a red because of this, my reds are all put away for a video coming up. Hint, hint. So we're going to have to mix up our plan and see if we can get maybe a teal, because there's a bit of a teal here. Ooh, actually that's kind of like a sage dark green grey, it's called. That's close to what we sort of want. I kind of like it. So maybe we can do that. So I'll show you this one in reverse, what happens when you do it in reverse. Because this one's quite dark. So we'll do the shadow first. I'm going to try and keep it consistent with the other shadow we did. See, so I've just done the shadow first and you can see where it's sort of faded out. And then we just need a colour to fill it with. Wonder if this is a good colour. It's a bit more green than I was thinking, but I don't mind it with this spread. So see, this is kind of my inspiration. So even though this isn't actually the same, it still kind of works. Do I want to go... I'm just looking at what I've got to work with here. This is my other option, to lean into the teal turquoise sort of range, jade green. I might go into the jade green on this one, I think. Oops, just broke that. Jade. Okay. So we're going to... It's a little part of me that just wants to go back to my Prismacolors because they're my comfort zone. I'm trying to be good. All right. I just said I wasn't going to blow on it, and I did blow on it. Nobody saw that. Everyone saw that because Shane's got 2 cameras going. All right, so there is an example of really basic shading on a flat shape so that now it's got a little bit of depth to it. Now you saw, obviously doing that is going to slow down your coloring for your page, but the end result is you end up with a lot more depth in everything. So that is just one example. If you have any questions about that, please pop them in and we'll try to answer them. And I'm not going to sit here and do the whole page with that, but I did want to show you an alternate way to do that using some markers. And again, I have got some cheaper markers to show you that you don't need Copics, you don't even need the Ohuhu alcohol markers. And these are actually all water-based markers. So for example, if you're looking at getting the coloring planner or even a lot of coloring books these days, the water-based markers won't bleed through the page like alcohol markers do. So they won't, that's not the case for every paper. So always test first. But a lot of your thicker coloring books or thicker paper, water-based markers won't bleed through them. So they're actually a really good option to kind of shortcut this process, speed up your coloring, and you can still do some shading with them if you use them with pencils. So I thought I could show you that just on another book here to kind of show you a little bit of, it's a fun shortcut. I actually just like it. It's kind of like a mixed media approach. So I've already kind of pre-picked these colors just to sort of make this quicker. So I've got here some Crayola Super Tips. The catch with the Crayola Super Tips is they don't have colors written on them. So I can't tell you what colors I'm using, but they're here. And I also grabbed 2 of the Ohuhu color markers. Gee, that one is like totally rubbed off. That's random. But yeah, I've got the Ohuhu color markers are kind of like a cheaper jewel tip. So they're like your Tombow jewel tips with the brush on one end and the fine point on the other. So that's what they are. But even the Crayola, like they're actually a pretty good marker and they get really good color. I think the catch is, again, that the color of the tip definitely doesn't always match the color of the marker, so you have to test. And maybe you can create labels and create your own color system or something to help in the future so you don't have to swatch them every time. So we might, tempted to actually use the yellow. Oh, God, I don't really want to do another brown book. Let's do a bright yellow book. So let's grab this book right next to the one we've just done maybe, or something different. Why don't we do this one lying down? So this book that is lying down here. Oh, actually, do you want to try a book that's under the plant to show you a slightly different shadow? What do we think? I'm thinking. I'll just do the plant plot as well to show you a bit more of a different curvature, or not. this plant pot, this one. Okay, so we're going to do two things. We're going to do the plant pot in the yellow. And we're going to do this book here. One problem with water-based ones is that sometimes you get streaks, but that's where like layering them with pencils can sometimes hide some of that. So it's, I don't know, pros and cons. Okay. So we've just done the whole first layer. So that was like super quick. And that's, I guess, the benefits of water-based markers. We do want to just give that a second because being water, it's a bit wet and the pencils will work on it much better if it's completely dry. So we'll just give that a second. While that's drying, do you want me to show you some of the new sticker packs we've been working on? So just for context, so this page that we're doing is from the new colouring planner. And if you haven't seen it yet, this is the colouring planner that I'm talking about. We do have a whole video about it on our channel and we'll pop a link for you in the comments. So it comes in this beautiful little box. It's not that little, it's actually quite a big box. And it fits very snug and nicely. My team like to use these boxes for other things as well, but you know, whatever, it's fine. You can keep it for later if you don't want to keep the planner later, or you can keep the planner in it as a nice keepsake for later. Depends on how you use your planner. If you use it as like a daily planner for planning, you might not want to keep it forever. But if you use the planner more like a keepsake memory and you color everything, then you probably do want to keep it forever, and then you have a nice box to keep it protected. But this particular version that I have in front of me is this is our sample that we get made up each year. So we actually got this printed before I'd even finished drawing everything. So like this page isn't even in this yet, and you'll see what I mean when I open it, and it's missing artwork. So this is like a special sneaky preview planner that's missing half the pages, just so that we could actually make the promo and get it off to print. Well, not get it off to print because yours won't have the missing pages. But I wanted to show you, there's a lot in here. We've got more information on the website, so I'm not going to like take you through every single page, but there's like monthly spreads, there's monthly planning. And then this year, we do have the really nice paper that I was talking about that can take water-based markers as one example, but also the artwork is going to change every day. So I spent so much time this time drawing, because instead of doing like the one theme all through January and then changing it in February, we've actually done a different theme every day. And so that ended up being about 50 different drawings. So it's been a lot of drawing. And so we've finally finished it all. So there's all these pages are now full and there's lots of artwork. There's a few that do repeat like 6 months later. But last year you had to colour the same thing for like a whole month. And a lot of people loved that. Not that it wasn't exactly the same, it did mix up, but a lot of people said they would like more variety. So there's a lot more here. I love the cakes page. That's one of my favorites as well. There's a cake spread for fun. We have pencils. What else we got here? Got some succulents, chocolate. You know, you don't have to feel bad about this chocolate. It doesn't put on any calories. This is one I actually did a bit of an example of. If you don't feel like colouring one day, you can just outline everything in gold and page is done. So lots of different options there. I've also got some simpler designs for people that just want something mindless. So we've got some stuff like that. So lots in there to colour. We launched this 2 weeks ago and we've already sold 15% of the stock that we're printing. So I mean, I did say last year that we thought we'd sell out and we didn't last year. But I think we're going to sell out this year because we've actually already sold a lot more than we sold at the same time last year. And that's just like, we don't even have the stock yet. So that's very exciting. This is another one of the pages that I was going to show you some stuff on today. That's one of the pages from the planner, which I was very excited about. So that's cool. I think we're almost dry. Give it another minute. The other thing that we had, and I have mentioned them in past videos, but just while I'm waiting another second, is our journals. These are now finished production. and they will be on their way to our distribution centers very, very soon. So these, we've got the 3 different designs based on planners, as you can tell by the artwork, based on our past planners. And we've got the line journals. So we've got lines and we've got stickers. Not stickers, dots. My brain's all over the place. So we've got lines and we've got dots. So we've got both options, and that you can choose out of the 3 designs which one you want. So that's all fun. I know my team have been like ready to hoard them when they come in, because it's just, yeah, a lot of fun. So I'm very excited to get my hands on more of them, and they will all be coming very, very soon. You can pre-order all that stuff now. So, but I think we are ready to get back to our colouring. So
Eva has left a comment and said that her parents are using the colour cube to decorate their new home.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, like we discovered at the M&M Centre, colour cube works for everything. I was very happy with my colourful M&Ms, which I'm eating a few more. So now that we have our yellow, I'm thinking our sienna brown actually might be a good match for this. I definitely recommend testing your pencils on the markers. Most brands should work, but just to see, because sometimes the colours will react quite differently compared to the colours on their own. So you just want to double check. But basically the goal here is the same as our blending, except that instead of trying to merge the colours, you're just going to layer the shadows. And some pencils and markers, you can also layer highlights, which is actually a lot of fun. Especially if you're using like your white pencil, you can layer. Now the white, again, the color might be quite different. So like that looks quite blue compared to that. Maybe we'll use a yellow. This is just for an example. I'm not going to do this on the actual book. But you can actually even go lighter to see how that yellow on the brown, maybe not on that one, but you can actually see light colors on dark colors sometimes too, depending on the pencils and depending on the markers. So it opens up just a whole different way of coloring by using the 2 different types of media. You can also do this with watercolor or with other media as well. I just find markers and pencils is something that you can take anywhere. You can take in an art bag. You can like carry around with you. It's no mess. There's no water to deal with. It's just simple. So it's kind of my favorite combo. So what we're going to do here, same rules, but the book is on its side, and we are just going to do the shadows. We're not even going to think about the middle because the texter has done that. The marker has done that for us. We're just going to fade it out to the lighter. And this is probably the quickest version of this ever. My hand's in the shot for this, sorry. And if you have a colour that is the same colour as your marker, I don't know if I have one here. We could have a go at this one maybe. Oh, look at that. Almost a perfect match. You can actually use that to kind of patch up some of these little areas that are a bit uneven, so that your marker can end up looking a bit more even. And that was like really, really quick. Which pencil was I using? This one? I think so. That was like really quick, and that already has depth to it. And that was so much quicker than the other one because we're not worried about filling the white spaces because the marker did that instantly. So that is a really good way if you're not up for waiting for the slowness of pencils. Using a marker as a base is like instant and quick. If we do want, we could actually grab a darker one again just to get that really, oh, I did that probably a bit too high. Just to get that really deeper shadow just on the edge, at least where the books are on it. Just to create a bit more contrast, but essentially that's done. Now I was going to do the pot as well, just because this is a little bit different. We're not looking for the edges of the book for curving. We're sort of more thinking about actual shadows here. So we might do a little bit of a curve around again, thinking about the pot just being curved. So just doing the edges again, we'll create a bit of a curve to the pot. So that's pretty much already done that in like a second. And then maybe just a touch on the bottom. But then what I actually want to do here, oh sorry, we'll do a curve on that top bit as well. just by shading one side of it gradually.
Does it get to a point where the pencils just won't layer anymore?
Definitely. And that's what I was saying about if you've pressed too hard and you end up burnishing the paper, that pretty much becomes the limit. Or some pencils. So when I did my big pencil test, I actually compared every single set of pencils and how many layers they could handle. Most pencils will let you do 5 or 6 layers as a minimum, and some pencils let you do up to 10. So that's actually something that we tested with all the pencils that we tried, and I literally sat there and just layered the pencils over and over. That was probably the most exhausting part of all the testing that we did. Just testing how many layers the pencils could handle. So yeah. So that's how you could do this. But if you're wanting to then step it up to shadows, which is where those shadow videos that I've done in the past will really help, is you could then look at this and think logically, well, if we had sun coming in, where would a shadow be? And we might look and think, well, actually this rim around here, there's not going to be any sun under that rim. So we can just darken a little bit under that rim as well. And that could even have a harsh edge. It doesn't even have to be blended out because shadows don't always blend out nicely. Sometimes shadows have a line. So we could just put like a hard edge there and that sort of looks like the sun's hitting it. So that was actually the Markers to pencils is like the quickest option, definitely. So that's a very, very simple approach to coloring that I think but as you can see, learning to blend and learning to actually layer your pencils is kind of the key to making the rest work. And then from there, like if you want to then level it up, it's then really learning how shadows work. And I do have a really in-depth video of that. It was a little bit old now, but I still think it's one of the most useful videos in my entire library. It doesn't have that many views because a lot of my stuff is more entertainment based and it is very much a tutorial, but it's actually 2 videos. So there is one on getting started in shadows and there is another one on more advanced shadows. And between the 2 of them, I actually talk through how shadows work and how to apply them to your coloring. And I know the people that have watched them have been like, wow, this was really, really helpful. So I would definitely recommend checking them out just to sort of give you a bit more advice. Do we want to do another example on shadows? Maybe let me know if you want me to give you a slightly more advanced shadow example. We can do that.
Can you layer markers to get shading?
You can, but different markers and different paper will limit your options. So let me just show you how I would try that with these markers. I'll just do it on here. So if I were to use the same thing of like 2 different markers, this is the biggest thing. So where alcohol markers will be better than water-based markers as opposed to the other way around. So let me show you the difference. I've got my water-based markers here, and this is not marker paper. This is our Nina paper that I was talking about. Where if I put these together and then try to layer them. Now these colors are very similar. So this is actually not too bad. I've just tried to blend them by kind of layering them over each other and it kind of works, except that it's built up a lot of water. And so you risk damaging the paper by doing so. If you've got 2 similar colors, you can pull it off, but your paper can only handle so much liquid before it just hits a limit or it's going to start going through the back. So it's possible, but you need colors that are very similar. And these are Crayola, so it's not about the markers. It can be done. It just takes practice, and you do need colors that are not too different to each other. So if I tried blending these 2, we're dealing with opposite ends of the color wheel here. This isn't going to work as well. The other thing I do if you are going to blend markers is you'll need to overlap the lighter color more than the darker color, because the darker color will just eat up that lighter color, as you can see there. So if there's one that's going to overlap, it's going to be the lighter one. But you can see that's not really worked at all.
If you're going to underpaint with markers, does that mean you need to have a heap of marker colours to match all the pencils?
I would tend to, with something like this, like I've not needed the shadow colour. I just need the base colour. So a set of like 50 markers is usually enough because you can adjust that marker colour quite a lot in your underpainting. Like the underpainting, I think sometimes we worry too much about needing every single perfect variation of every color, but realistically, like coloring pages, they're not hyper-realistic drawings. And if you're doing a hyper-realistic drawing, you shouldn't probably be using markers for underpainting. So I think it's one of those things of sometimes we probably focus too much on matching colors perfectly for something where a slightly different yellow isn't going to matter. And then using the right pencils, you can kind of adjust it a little bit anyway. Whereas if you're wanting something to be super realistic, like say a portrait, you probably shouldn't be doing underpaintings with markers in the first place, because that's going to pull away from some of that realism anyway. I don't know if that really helps answer that question. I did want to show you quickly the markers. So if you are really wanting to blend with markers, that's where alcohol markers are beneficial. The downside, and I generally much prefer alcohol markers, and a lot of people do. The downside is that you can't use them in coloring books because they will bleed through. You can, as long as you're willing to give up the page on the back. That's really the catch. And you always need to put a piece of paper behind them. So if you're happy to, or if you've got a printout, then that's no problem because there's nothing on the back. But here, so this is all alcohol markers on my display. So let's just grab these. I don't even know if they're going to work, but let's just have a go. Now this isn't marker paper. The reason I point out that difference is this paper it will absorb the ink, which gives you less time to blend. Whereas marker paper, it's not that it's plastic, but it has a little bit more of a plasticky feel to it. And I'm talking minor, like you wouldn't even notice it. That when you apply the markers, they sit on the surface for just long enough that when you're blending them, they have a bit more time to actually react to each other before absorbing into the paper. I think that's the only way I can sort of describe the difference. Marker paper, however, isn't great with pencils. It's not bad. It can work. But you sort of, when you're choosing paper, need to decide what is the main medium you're using. So if you're doing most of your work with markers and pencils are just for like tiny details, I would use marker paper. But if you're using markers just as a base and you're wanting to do all of your details in pencils, like all of the details, like what I've just done, then I would say use a paper like this that is better for pencils. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a paper that's like ideal for both, just because the two different mediums need such different, they need such different paper that it just doesn't, I don't think it would be possible to manufacture something that works well for both. I apologize for the cat sneezing in the background. You okay, Moscow? Funny cat. So on this paper, which again, this is not marker paper, but it still can be used for markers. We've got our pink and our purple. These are our hoo-hoo markers. So if we put down one color, this is a very bright pink. Oh, and then well, that's a very dark purple. These are not really the best colors to blend, but we can try. And then we'll bring our pink over. And the thing about alcohol markers as well, so these are probably not two colors you'd normally try to blend because they're pretty different. I reckon on marker paper, this would work pretty well. But if you just watch that for a second and you need to give it time, you can see the colors do actually start to work into each other a bit more, especially if I layer the lighter color over the dark color just a bit more. So this is something, and look, it's not my strong point. I am not as much of a marker artist, although I would love to play with it a bit more and get better at it. But one thing I have learned is you don't want to sit there scrubbing, unlike with pencils. You don't want to sit there scrubbing, trying to make the blend happen. You're actually better off to just let it sit and the blend will happen on its own. I've been told off in the past for scrubbing with my markers because you will just damage them. But as you can see, that color in the middle is changing. And I think you just need to sometimes just give it time. And you can even reactivate it because the alcohol is very different to water in that when you apply more alcohol, it will kind of re-wet the alcohol and bring it back. And you can keep kind of playing with the color. So that is very different to this. Whereas water, you keep adding water, it just eventually soaks into the paper and tears the paper. Alcohol, you can add quite a lot to the paper and it won't damage the paper. So this becomes a lot easier to get like a flat color because I could actually keep adding a lot of color to this pink and it's not going to damage the paper. It'll just use a lot of ink. But even though those are two very different colors and this is not marker paper, you can see that that has the potential to be a much better blend than say this. Even though this one actually turned out all right. I've picked bad colors to prove the difference. If this was a YouTube short, everyone would be having a go at me saying that one was better, so your markers are wrong. That's the problem with YouTube shorts. They don't have enough room for context. I don't know if that was helpful. I hope that was helpful in defining the differences. I think it's worth trying both. I think people undervalue water-based markers because people assume they can't blend. They can. It's just a different kind of work, and you don't have as much, you can't do as much with them before it damages the paper, so you do have to be more strategic. But I do think the water-based markers are really good if you then use them with your pencils. And honestly, even your Crayola Super Tips are actually surprisingly good for the few dollars that they cost. So don't dismiss them. Crayola does an all right job with their markers.
Do you do a lot of realism work with pencils?
Not as much as I'd like to. I actually really love drawing realistic work, but basically the only drawing that I do is on this YouTube channel. So if you've seen it in a video, it exists. If it's not in a video, it probably doesn't exist. That's kind of the simple version. I would love to have more time to just draw and do stuff like that. Maybe in the future, we'll see. Did we make a decision on if we want to do a more... I reckon we could probably spend maybe another 15 minutes or so if we want to just stretch this stream a little bit longer. If we want to hang out for a little bit more, and we can do just another shadow. What's the verdict? While I'm waiting on that verdict, I thought too, because when we released our new planner, we're also releasing 3 new sticker books, but I haven't really given anyone a look at them yet because we hadn't drawn the stickers yet. So for context... these are the sticker books we currently have of stickers that you can buy now on our website, but we have got some more coming. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about a sticker book. These are made to go with the planner. So they're just lots of stickers that you can color in, and you don't have to use them on your planner. You can use them anywhere, but they were designed to match like last year's planner and the planner the year before, but they're like just fun designs. So you can use them on anything. But this year, because the planner has too many pictures in it, literally couldn't fit them all in a sticker book. So instead, we've decided to release 3 different sticker books on just some general topics. And we've also decided to bring back some of our old sticker designs into the sticker book format. So the first one that we are doing is a plant sticker book. So some of these might be familiar. So these are some of the finished pages that we've been working on. This is not the whole book. It's as big as those ones that are already there, but I thought I'd give you a little look. These aren't even stickers. These are just printouts. But these are some of what's in the new sticker book that's on the website. So we're going to try and get some previews up on the website soon, but you can pre-order these now. And all the sticker books are half price if you're buying it with the 2024 planner. And then we also have...
Christy Rice has just dropped in and said hello.
Oh, hi, Christy. Just in time to see all my new stickers. This is part 1 of a food sticker book. Initially, the sticker book was very much just like candy and donuts. So I've tried to be good and bring in some healthy food too. Because I was like, we're making a food sticker book and it's all just junk food, and I felt a bit bad. But I was quite happy to have it just full of donuts and coffee. But no, there are some healthy things in there as well. And the last one we're bringing in is not colouring. It is functional, which looks a bit like the ones we used to have on our website, but we've added some more and we've got a few different colours. So this is one of the colour sets, but there's going to be like 6 different pages of each colour set. And so we've got some new like bigger boxes coming in as well. So this is like a summer range of colours. So these are just a few of the pages that are going to be included of some of the different colours. So these are the final colours we're going with. I think the previews on the website aren't actually the final colours. So this is the final summer colours. So we'll be putting some more previews on the website soon, but I thought you guys would like a little early peek since we're streaming and it's fun to show off stuff. But since we've flogged quite a few products in this video, I should also give you a free thing, right? I do have, and a lot of you probably already have it, but if you join our email list, you can also get a free colouring book. So this is one of the pictures from the free colouring book. There's actually about 18 colouring pages in it. So these are some of the pictures that you can get as a PDF download completely free when you join my email list, just as my way of saying thank you. So we'll pop a link to that in the comments as well. So many links in the comments today. Thank you, Kristen, for your amazing help, and to Natalie for also helping moderate the comments today, by the way. I have a really amazing team. And thank you, Shane, for your help today. We have a really amazing team that have been helping, and today's sort of the first stream that everyone's been able to jump in on, so it's been awesome. I know Kirsten's also listening in from the other room too, so...
If you were thankful, you'd give me that bag from Jazza.
I think Shane needs to let go of trying to claim the bag from Jazza, unless, of course, we are buying a second set for me, which I think we just might. Cause...
The verdict for the shadows was yes, too.
All right, well, let's jump in, because... This has been a fun stream, but I think we need to end on just a little bit more, because I'm in a good colouring mood. I'm not exhausted like I usually am from a stream, but I do think that's also a sign we need to do more streams, because this has been a lot of fun. So I've got this page here. I think this is a great one. I haven't even got a colour palette picked, but I'm going to focus on the shadows. So what I might do with this is we might go black and white, just so that I can show you how I do shadows. We're going to forget the colour for a moment, which feels really not how I do things at all. So I'm just going to grab one colour. Let's go for a grey. Because my goal here is actually more to show you how I plan out my shadows rather than to show you how to colour a whole page. And again, let me just sharpen this before I try and talk. I do have a whole video about shadows that will kind of teach you this in more depth over like 20 minutes, which we'll probably spend the next 15, 20 minutes on this anyway, but it will show you a bit more of the sort of, not science, not the right word, a bit the research behind how this works. But I'm going to try and give you a simple practical version now to just get you started. This is quite a big page that might feel quite overwhelming if you sort of don't know where to start. So we're just going to try and plot out some shadows and see how we go. We're going to pretend that our little T-Gal sharpener here is a sun. Actually, no, we might even have a sun sticker. No, we don't, but stickers are more fun. Oh, forget it, I can't find one. What have I got? Oh, I know. I have a giant little, I have a Post-it note thing that's like clear. It can be our sun. Where do we want our sun? Here? I like to do, if I'm not sure how to approach shadows and I want an easy option, I usually pick a corner, because the middle is a bit harder. Somewhere like off to the edge can be confusing. Picking a corner is usually a fairly easy spot to kind of work out, and I'll explain why in a minute. So basically this is going to be our sun on our picture. And then what we kind of want to do from here is work out on every object, and we'll just do one object at a time. If the sun were here, where would the shadows be? So to try and visualize that a little bit more, I'll even pull out a ruler. I've got a few rulers in here. This one.
While you're finding a ruler, we have a very important question.
Is it a silly question? Is it not actually important, or is it actually
Why do you have
important?
boxes of pencil shavings on your shelf?
I knew it would be something that wasn't actually important. No, but everyone asks me this now. I brought it up. It's like, yeah, so I've been collecting pencil shavings since we started the YouTube channel with no clear goal. That's real. I don't know. I just did. And then I started and it was like, well, we're doing this now. I'm going to do something with them one day. I don't know. Suggestions welcome.
Suggestions in the comments, please.
Yep, suggestions in the comments. And one day we'll do something with them. Something undefined. To be decided. But we've gone too far. Do you want me to show you how many there are? I think it's not really clear how many there are. The collection has grown. Let's bring them out. We have. Okay, so you know what this really is? This is evidence of how good this sharpener is. And this is my other sharpeners, because I keep them separate, because it's a different kind of sharpening. So So here we have all my other sharpeners combined. And here we have the M&R and the dial, although I don't have the dial because I gave it to one of our team and it's at her house. So this has done most of this work. This is how much this sharpener has gone through and not died. It's a good sharpener. This is how many pencil sharpenings I currently have. So there's a lot. So yeah, ideas open to ideas. I gotta put them back. All right, back to actual useful things. Okay, so what was I even saying? It's gone. I'm gone. Okay, we're doing shadows. So we want to keep anything in direct sunlight light, and we want to keep anything that's not in the sunlight in a shadow. So if we think about our sun pointing, let's do this big plant here as our first one. So if we think about our sun here, this area here is going to be in the sun. But anything that might be blocked is going to be in a shadow. So that also counts for the ground and everything behind it. So for example, because the sun is here, especially if we imagine the sun is behind things, we can pretty much have a look here and draw a line and work out that the area here that we can now see behind that pot is going to be in a shadow because this pot is in the way. I don't know if that rule helped or just made it more confusing for everyone. So I'm just going to do it. So all of these pots, if the sun is kind of further back, we can do a little bit of a shadow in the front. This is what we call a cast shadow. So I like to start, and in fact, I probably should get a lighter and a darker version of this color just so that it's not a really, in fact, I'll get these two. Because not all our shadows are going to be like really heavy. We want some light shadows too. It's been a long time since I've explained shadows to people. So if this doesn't make sense, go back and watch the other video. So we'll start with light shadows and we can come back and fill in the dark shadows later. So we're going to start with just some shadows in front of a few of the pots of where the sun is kind of blocked by the pot itself. So it's a cast shadow because the object is casting the shadow. So you think about like when you're outside and you can see your shadow on the ground and you dance and the shadow dance. Maybe that's just us because we have kids. I'm sure there's someone who does that with our kids though. So we're going to do that for all our pots because that's nice and easy. We can even do that with a slightly darker one actually, I think, for our cast shadow so that you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm kind of rushing this, so it's not very neat. I'm sorry. Shadows can also be soft or harsh. It's kind of up to you because depending on if it's overcast or if the sun's out or if it's a light source or something, like cast shadows can be really harsh shadows or they could be soft shadows. So it's up to you how you want to do it. All right, so I've got a couple of cast shadows along here. I won't do all the other ones now, but that's all right. Then we've got to think about other areas that may be at the back of the pots that might also not get the sun. So we've got areas like the back of these pots here that are facing away from the sun. So this one's kind of blocked, but there will be a little bit back here. This one, it's kind of back here. And then these ones, it's this back area. The thing about this shadow is that because these pots are round, this shadow will kind of fade out as it goes around the curve. So that's where it might be useful to have a lighter color, or because the pots would usually be colored, you would just do this as your gradient, like we've shown you before, to actually go into your other color that the pot is, if that makes sense. So we're starting with the darkest back here and then working our way backwards to about, you don't want to go too far because after this sort of halfway point, it will see the sun. So the rest of it should actually just be left normal. about like colouring, much like everything, is if you don't get this perfect, it doesn't matter too much. Like, just have a go, because the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more you sort of end up doing it intuitively. If you're sort of really stuck, try and find some reference photos of, you're not going to find a reference photo of this exact layout, but find a picture of a pot and copy the shadows on that pot. Because after a while, it'll start to be more natural. And maybe the pot that you do won't look perfect, but just by having some shading on there, it'll look more interesting. And I think that's just the key, is just to have a go. A lot of my earlier stuff, I look back and go, yeah, that wasn't great, but you only learn by trying, so you're better off to just have a go, and you might surprise yourself. You'll actually end up creating something more interesting than you expect. Otherwise, you'll forever have your nice supplies sitting on the shelf, and you'll just keep doing the same thing because it's too scary to try something new. I think fear stops us from doing a lot of things because we just panic and think that's too hard, or I won't be an expert right away. But it's very interesting, I find, like raising kids, where I'm like, of course you're not going to be an expert right away. Why would you expect that? And yet as adults, we seem to forget that. We forget that you have to be a beginner at some point. You have to be a beginner before you become an expert. And that applies to even little things like learning to shade and learning to draw shadows. Because if you've never done it before, you're not going to be perfect right away. So already we can see a little bit of a 3D look happening just by doing those first few shadows. So I think that's a really simple start. The thing about shadows is if you just start with the easy stuff like that, as you start to do those areas, other areas start to sort of show up and you go, okay, that bit looks a bit flat. Maybe I need to add a shadow somewhere else. So the next thing that I would look at is, what about the inside of the pots? Would the inside of the pots get sun? Probably not, because they're full of plants. Maybe the inside of the pots on the back would get sun because the sun's pointing right at it. But the inside of the pots that are facing away from the sun are probably not going to get any light. So we probably could colour them quite dark. So the inside, we might do a bit reverse of what we did on the outside. See how that's sort of lighter on this side and darker on that side, which is opposite of the outside. Now, if there's plants in it, then the plants are going to block the sun from the back, so the whole of it can be there because they're going to block that. How are we all going? Are we following along? So far, I think we're starting to, on these different objects, get a bit of depth by adding some different shadows. We've also got the plant here that again will have a darker side on the back, but not the front. Now this is quite heavy shadows, which is sort of, I guess, like an overcast day, or maybe it's just strong lighting. If you don't want such heavy shadows, you would just use a more subtle color. Like if you're coloring everything, you wouldn't use black for your shadows. You might just use a darker version of each color. And so it can be a bit more discreet. I'm just trying to use this to sort of really show you where the shadows go. Once you work out where they go, you can then even try changing colors. Like I've started experimenting with using more blues for the shadows and yellows for the sort of lighter areas to create different lighting effects and stuff like that. That's all what you can do once you sort of get the flow of it. The first step is just learning where they go. Now, once you've kind of done this, then we can start looking at areas that just won't get light because other things are in the way. So what I mean by that, it's actually called occlusion shadow. So it's like little nooks in things. So an example would be, even though this part of, really loud truck there, this part of the leaf might be facing the sun, but maybe the little corner in here is just not going to get sun because it's just too close to this leaf. And that might be one where we just do a hard edge there where it's like completely black, and then we kind of fade it out to the rest of the leaf. And that might not go along the whole leaf, or it might. That's up to you. Sometimes you just got to kind of experiment or just have a go and just decide what you want to do. This one's the same. I might do a very tiny one here, but then maybe that shadow will get bigger on this side because it's facing away. Maybe my leaves in general might have a bit more of a shadow on this side that's facing away from the sun. And this, I might just use a lighter color to show you what I mean by this a bit more, because if you were to do this in color, you might just do this with a darker green rather than make it a whole shadow. Where some of these leaves might just be facing away from the sun or might be curved a bit. And so by creating them a bit darker than the other leaves, it creates a feeling that maybe they are facing away. Or maybe just that one little edge of them is facing the sun. So you can start to sort of make it feel like things are on different angles because some are facing the sun and some aren't. It's amazing what light can do to actually just completely change the look of a piece. And I really do like, even in trees and stuff, just making some leaves lighter and some leaves darker to create a feeling of like the darker leaves being the leaves that are kind of hidden in the bottom, even if the light source is right on top, which is what I showed in that shading video that I did. So like even here, by making this leaf sort of darker, it feels like it's kind of tucked behind the other leaves. So not every leaf has to be the same color because different lighting is going to reflect off different leaves in different ways. But when I say different color, I really just mean darker and lighter versions of, not like a completely different color. Although trees do have a lot of variety, so you can actually do that too. Now I'm not wanting to do this whole page, so we might finish up here, but I might just see if Shane has any other questions while I just sort of do some extra little bits on here. Whether it's about this process or just anything in general before we sort of finish up. It's heading towards lunchtime here, and I know that once I sort of get to lunch, I start to fade a little bit. So I probably need to end up this stream, and I'd love to end it on a good note. And it's actually been a lot of fun chatting with you all again. And I'd love to hear if you want more streams like this, if there's any particular topics that you'd love me to do in future streams, please let us know, because this is something we want to do more of. We'd love to do more regular streaming, and I'd love to hear what you'd love to do. What would you expect from more regular streaming? So please let us know. I hope this was helpful. I would love to keep going on this. I actually, come to think of it, did a very similar picture to this in that Advanced Shadows video where I did it in black and white. And I think it was actually not that different to this picture. It was another sort of selection of pots. So you'll be able to sort of compare my notes on that to what we've just done and see whether I followed my own advice on how to actually approach a picture like this. But I think that you can kind of see where I was going with this and see how it sort of all comes together. Anything to add, Shane?
I think the visual aid has been quite helpful. That's been mentioned, and loving that you're going over the shading and shadows again. And there's a lot of comments about the pencil shavings, doing some sort of resin art with it.
Yeah, resin is something that I've never tried, and I think that's kind of where I was leaning as well, but it's like I need to find the perfect project, I think. It needs to be something that I go, oh yes, that's what I want to use them for. Because the thing with pencil shavings in resin is it could look really cool or it could look really bad. I don't know. Maybe it's like, I don't know, 1 million subscribers special. We do something with the shavings or something like that. I'm thinking some kind of woodworking or art piece or resin, or I don't know. Keep sending in ideas, because I think it's definitely something that we'll be looking for what is the best idea, and keen to sort of hear about that. So yeah, I guess to finish up, thank you everyone for the comments. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you so much for just hanging with me today. It has been a lot of fun. I hope that you walked away with something helpful. Please let us know in the comments. And also, like, even if you've sort of just jumped in, the comments, we'll be closing live chat comments when this all finishes up. It's just a YouTube thing, but there will also be comments on the video. So I would love it if you could just like stick around past the video and just leave a comment on the actual video once it goes up and tell us what was like your favorite part or the the biggest thing that you got out of today, just so that other people that watch it can jump in and go, cool, that sounds really cool. I'll listen to that too. And it just helps us know what you got out of this so that we can then like look for what we want to do in future live streams so that it can be the most useful for you. Because I know I'm the one on camera, but I don't want this to be about me. I want this to be helpful for you. And yeah, I'm really, like, I'm excited to share the stuff that we're working on, but I really more than anything want to make this about just hanging out with you guys, answering your questions and helping you through some of these tips. So I look forward to doing this again soon. Let me know as well if you do end up going and checking out Jazza's bag. I'm really curious. I'm sorry that I don't know the pricing, but it will be on the Kickstarter tomorrow. And I think we'll definitely get another one for ourselves. And also just for our stuff, I don't think I mentioned, if you are looking at the journals or the planner or the stickers or any of that, we have some pre-order prices up now, but we also have free shipping in some of our locations. All the details are on the website. It's not everywhere, but we have free shipping available now for a lot of those items for a lot of places. So thank you for joining me today and have a great weekend.